Hey, Amy, how are you? Hey, Sunshine, how we doing? Matthew, how are we? I'm upright and mobile. Hey, Wings, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Naomi. I'm doing all right. How about yourself? Hey, Eddie, welcome in. Relatable hair, how are you? I'm actually working on that. I really do want to make one that's glow in the dark. Oh, where are we? The Unborn Tomorrow. Oh, where the red fern grows. That's gonna be that'll be a while before I do that one. Okay, that's those two. Where the hell did my music go? Stupid VLC player. No, I'm good. I am good. We don't have a problem. Not yet, anyway. Hey. Oh, let's see here. There we go. Font size. Crank that up so I can freaking see it. Okay, that might be too much. Good enough. Jasmine, I have, and I will probably do so again. Yeah, thank you, Spencer. Yeah, Poe is a fan favorite around here. So is Lovecraft and Stephen King, Richard Matheson. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Laura, thank you. Yeah, I really enjoy his stories. I have to be careful because some of them are definitely not live appropriate, but yeah, it's I love doing his work. We did Cycle of the Werewolf recently, which was awesome. Papillon, I've heard of it. I have not read it. All right. Well, we'll give another minute here for people to finish filtering in. And then we'll go ahead and get started. So I was really thinking about what I should read tonight. And hey, Casey. It took me a few minutes to figure it out, but I think I've got it. Oh, you guys are so eager to know. Don't you worry, you'll find out in a minute. I will say that the feature story tonight is written by none other than Ray Bradbury. Holes might work because I have to go and read it myself because I haven't, but I have heard a lot of good things about it. I think there's a movie too, isn't there? So. I'm glad. I'm glad. Hey, crazy mama, I see you. Sending that heart me. How you doing? Understandable. Any new news? Well, I've got my fingers crossed for you. Absolutely. Kidding me? I spend more time with you guys than I do with some of my family. So you know. Jojo, these tonight is short stories. I have 3 stories for you guys. Jasmine, thank you. That's I'm gonna have to say I go through all the comments later, and I am gonna have to screenshot that one. I love that. That is like the best freaking comment. And actually, I'm gonna screenshot that right now so I don't lose it. I'm gonna pin that because it's worth it. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, Jojo. These stories tonight are about 30 to 40 minutes a piece, so it should fill up my time between now and 11 o'clock when I'm done. Usually go for about 2 hours. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right. Well, I think we are going to get started because it is almost 10 after 9. And I don't want to hold up the storytelling any longer than I have to. All right. Stay. Stupid microphone. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Storytime with UndeadPapa. Tonight, we are featuring one of the most popular themes in all of science fiction. It's been done on the Twilight Zone, in Star Trek multiple times. They can't seem to make a Star Trek movie without it. And in the on the printed page, it has been done countless and countless times. Sometimes it's not done very well, but other times, it's done fantastically. And I am talking about time travel. So I've got 3 stories tonight that take 3 different approaches to time travel. And, yeah. Justin, I do lives 4 times a week. Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. All from 9 p.m. Eastern Standard to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard. Usually go for about 2 hours. Sometimes we go a little longer if we only got a little bit left in the story. Sundays are definitely family-friendly stories. We do kids' chapter books. We just did Bridge to Terabithia. Wonderful book, but the ending is definitely a kick in the chest. We've done Charlotte's Web, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, A Wrinkle in Time, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all that fun stuff. But on Wednesdays and Fridays, we do the dark and fantastic stories of horror and science fiction and thrillers. So, yeah. Lisa, were you here for Charlotte's Web? Boy, did I cry at the end. And then Bridge to Terabithia was, yeah. That one almost broke me as a narrator. Well, I will tell you, I don't do anything super scary. And tonight's science fiction, so no worries. Oh, okay. Well, I am glad you found me. Yeah, there's like 300 people in the room, and they're all crying at the same time. Well, I am glad you found us, Lisa. I am glad you are here. All right. Well, wherever you're listening from, sit back and relax, because story time is about to begin. First story tonight is called The Eternal Wall by Raymond Z. Gallen. "See you in half an hour, Betty," said Ned Vince over the party line on the telephone. "We'll be out at the Silver Basket before 10:30. Ned Vince was eager for the company of the girl he loved. That was why he was in a hurry to get to the neighboring town of Hurley, where she lived. His old car rattled and roared as he swung it recklessly around Pit Bend. There was where death tapped him on the shoulder. Another car leaped suddenly into view, its lights glaring blindingly past a high, up-jutting mass of Jurassic rock at the turn of the road. Dazzled and befuddled by his own rash speed, Ned Vince had only swift young reflexes to rely on and to avoid a fearful telescoping collision. He flicked his wheels smoothly to the right, but the County Highway Commission hadn't yet tarred the traffic-loosened gravel at the bend. Ned could scarcely have chosen a worse place to start sliding and spinning. His car hit the white-painted wooden rail sideways, crashed through, and tumbled down a steep slope, struck a huge boulder, bounced up a little, and arced outward, falling as gracefully as a swan diver toward the inky waters of the pit 50 feet beneath. Ned Vince was still dimly conscious when that black, quiet pool geysered around him in a mighty splash. He had only a dazzling welt on his forehead and a gag of terror in his throat. Movement was slower now, as he began to sink, trapped inside his wrecked car. Nothing that he could imagine could mean doom more certainly than this. The pit was a tremendously deep pocket in the ground, spring-fed. The edges of that almost bottomless pit were caked with a rim of white, for the water on which dead birds so often floated was surcharged with alkali. As that heavy, natronous liquid rushed up through the openings and cracks beneath his feet, Ned Vince knew that his friends and his family would never see his body again, lost beyond recovery in the abyss. The car was deeply submerged. The light had blinked out on the dash panel, leaving Ned in absolute darkness. A flood rushed in at the shattered window. He clawed at the door, trying to open it, but it was jammed in the crash-bent frame, and he couldn't fight against the force of that incoming water. The welt left by the blow he had received on his forehead put a thickening mist over his brain so that he could not think clearly. Presently, when he could no longer hold his breath, bitter liquid was sucked into his lungs. His last thoughts were those of a drowning man. The machine shop he and his dad had in Harwich. Betty Moore with the smiling Irish eyes like in the song. Betty and he planned to go to the State University this fall. They'd planned to be married sometimes. Goodbye, Betty. The ripples that had ruffled the surface waters in the pit quieted again to glassy smoothness. The eternal stars shone calmly. The geologic Dakota hills, which might have seen the dinosaurs, still bulked along the highway. Time, the brother of death, and the father of change, seemed to wait. Kali! Tick! Tick, 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 Kali! The excited cry, which no human throat could quite have duplicated accurately, arose thinly from the depths of a powder-dry gulch, water-scarred from an inconceivable antiquity. The noonday sun was red and huge. The air was tenuous, dehydrated, chill. Kali! Tick, tick, tick. At first, there was only one voice uttering those weird, triumphant sounds. Then other vocal organs took up that trilling wail and those short, sharp chuckles of eagerness. Other questioning, wandering notes mixed with the cadence, lacking qualities identifiable as human. The disturbance was still like the babble of a group of workmen who have discovered something remarkable. The desolate expanse around the gulch was all but without motion. The icy breeze tore tiny puffs of dust from the grotesque angling drifts of soil, nearly waterless for eons. Patches of drab lichen grew here and there on the up-jutting rocks, but in the desert itself, no other life was visible. Even the hills had sagged away, flattened by incalculable ages of erosion. At a mile distance, a crumbling heap of rubble arose. Once it had been a building. A gigantic, jagged mass of detritus slanted upward from its crest, red debris that had once been steel. a launching catapult for the last spaceships built by the gods in Exodus. Perhaps it was 500,000 years ago. Man was gone from the earth. Glacial ages, war, decadence, disease, and the final scattering of those ultimate superhumans to newer worlds in other solar systems had done that. Kali, tick, tick, tick. The sounds were not human. They were more like the chatter and wail of small desert animals. But there was a seeming paradox here, in the depths of that gulch, too. The glint of metal, sharp and burnished, the flat, streamlined bulk of a flying machine. Shiny and new. The bell-like muzzle of a strange excavator apparatus which seemed to depend on a blast of atoms to clear away rock and soil. Thus the gulch had been cleared of the accumulated rubbish of antiquity. Man, it seemed, had a successor as ruler of the earth. Loy Chuck had flown his geological expedition out from the far lowlands to the east, out from the city of Ka-Ra, and he was very happy now, flushed with a vast and unlooked-for success. He crouched there on his haunches at the dry bottom of the pit. The breeze rumpled his long brown fur. He wasn't very different in appearance from his ancestors. A foot tall, perhaps, as he squatted there in that antique stance of his kind. His tail was short and furred, his undersides creamy. White whiskers spread around his inquisitive pink-tipped snout. But his cranium bulged up and forward between shrewd, beady eyes, betraying the slow heritage of time, of survival of the fittest, of evolution. He could think and dream and invent, and the civilization of his kind was already far beyond that of the ancient 20th century. Loy Chuck and his fellow workers were gathered, tense and gleeful, around the things their digging had exposed to the daylight. There was a gob of junk, scarcely more than an irregular formation of flaky rust, but embedded in it was a huddled form, brown and hard as old wood. The dry mud that had encased it like an airtight coffin had now been chipped away by the tiny investigators. But soiled clothing still clung to it, after perhaps 1,000,000 years. Metal had gone into decay, yes, but not this body. The answer to this was simple. Alkali. A mineral saturation that had held time and change in stasis. A perfect preservative for organic tissue, aided probably during the most of those passing eras by desert dryness. The Dakotas had turned arid very swiftly. This body was not a mere soft fossil. It was a mummy. I really would like to one day go, tonight's sponsored is Ghost Energy Drink. When you're dead inside, but you still have to go to work. That's the dream. It does keep attacking me. Kali! Man, that meant. Not the star-conquering demigods, but the ancestral stock that had built the first machines on Earth, and in the early 21st century, the first interplanetary rockets. No wonder Loy Chuck and his co-workers were happy in their paleontological enthusiasm. A strange accident happening in a legendary antiquity had aided them in their quest for knowledge. At last Loy Chuck gave a soft chirping signal. The chant of triumph ended, while instruments flicked in his tiny hands. The final instrument he used to test the mummy looked like a miniature stereoscope. With complicated details, he held it over his eyes, and on the tiny screen within, through the agency of focused X-rays, he saw magnified images of the internal organs of this ancient human corpse. What his probing gaze revealed to him made his pleasure even greater than before. In twittering, chattering sounds, he communicated his further knowledge to his henchman. Though devoid of moisture, the mummy was perfectly preserved, even to its brain cells. Medical and biological sciences were far advanced among Loy Chuk's kind, perhaps by the application of principles long known to them. This long-dead body could be made to live again. Well, this is the Welch's grape flavor, and it tastes like grape juice. They also have a grape cranberry Welch's flavor, and that one is good also. I'm not too hot on any of the other flavors, but these two are good enough for me. And I don't drink coffee, so I kind of need it. It might move, speak, remember its past. What a marvelous subject for study it would make back there in the museums of Kara. Tick, tick, tick. But Loy silenced this fresh, eager chattering with a command. Work was always more substantial than cheering. With infinite care, small, sharp hand tools were used. Now the mummy of Ned Vince was disengaged from the worthless rust of his primitive automobile. With infinite care, it was crated in a metal case and hauled into the flying machine. Hey, Mary Lick, how are you? Welcome, welcome. Flashing flame, the ladder arose, bearing the entire 100 members of the expedition. The craft shot eastward at bullets-like speed. The spreading continental plateau of North America seemed to crawl backward beneath. A tremendous sand desert, marked with low, washed-down mountains and the vague, angular, geometric mounds of human cities that were gone forever. Beyond the eastern rim of the continent, the plain dipped downward steeply. The white of dried salt was on the hills, but there was a little green growth there too. The dead sea bottom of the vanished Atlantic was not as dead as the highlands. Far out in a deep valley, Kara, the city of the rodents, came into view. A crystalline maze of low, bubble-like structures glinting in red sunshine, but this was only its surface aspect. Loy Chuk's people had built their homes mostly underground since the beginning of their foggy evolution. Besides, in this latter day, the nights were very cold. The shelter of subterranean passages and rooms was welcome. The mummy was taken to Loy Chuk's laboratory, a short distance below the surface. Here at once the scientist began his work. The body of the ancient man was put in a large vat. Fluid submerged it, slowly soaking from that hardened flesh the alkali that had preserved it for so long. The fluid was changed often until woody muscles and other tissues became pliable once more. Then the more delicate process began. Still submerged in liquid, the corpse was submitted to a flow of restorative energy, passing between complicated electrodes. The cells of antique flesh and brain gradually took on a chemical composition nearer to that of the life that they had once known. At last the final liquid was drained away, and the mummy lay there, A mummy no more, but a pale, silent figure in its tatters of clothing. Loy Chuck put an odd metal fabric helmet on its head and a second, much smaller helmet on his own. Connected with this arrangement was a black box of many uses. For hours he worked with his apparatus, studying and guiding the recording instruments. The time passed swiftly. At last, eager and ready for whatever might happen now, Loy Chuck pushed another switch. With a cold, rosy flare, energy blazed around that moveless form. For Ned Vince, timeless eternity ended like a gradual fading mist. When he could see clearly again, he experienced that inevitable shock of vast change around him. Though it had been dehydrated, his brain had been kept perfectly intact through the ages, and now it was restored. So his memories were as vivid as yesterday. Yet, through that crystalline vat in which he lay, he could see a broad, low room in which he could barely have stood erect. He saw instruments and equipment whose weird shapes suggested alienness and knowledge beyond the era he had known. The walls were lavender and phosphorescent. Fossil bone fragments were mounted in shallow cases, dinosaur bones. Some of them seemed from their size, but there was a complete skeleton of a dog, too, and the skeleton of a man, and a second man skeleton that was not quite human. Its neck vertebrae were very thick and solid, its shoulders were wide, and its skull was gigantic. All this weirdness had a violent effect on Ned Vince. A sudden nostalgic panic. Something was fearfully wrong. The nervous terror of the unknown was on him, feeble and dizzy after his weird resurrection, which he could not understand. Remembering as he did that moment of sinking to certain death in the pool at the pit bend, he caught the edge of the transparent vat and pulled himself to a sitting posture. There was a muffled murmur around him, as of some vast unearthly metropolis. "Take it easy, Ned Vince." The words themselves and the way they were assembled were old familiar friends, but the tone was wrong. It was high, shrill, parrot-like, and mechanical. Ned's gaze searched for the source of the voice, located the black box just outside of his crystal vat. From that box the voice seemed to have originated. Before it crouched a small, brownish animal with a bulging head. The animal's tiny-fingered paws, hands they were, really, were touching rows of keys. To Ned Vince, it was all utterly insane, incomprehensible. A rodent, looking like a prairie dog a little, but plainly possessing a high order of intelligence, and a voice whose soothingly familiar words were more repugnant somehow, simply because they could never belong in a place as eerie as this. Ned Vince did not know how Loy Chuck had probed his brain with the aid of a pair of helmets and a black box apparatus. He did not know that in the latter his language, taken from his own revitalized mind, was recorded, and that Loy Chuck had only to press certain buttons to make the instrument express his thoughts in common long-dead English. Loy, whose vocal organs were not human, would have had a Loy, whose vocal organs were not human, would have had great difficulty speaking English words anyway. Ned's dark hair was wildly awry. His gaunt young face held a befuddled terror. He gasped in the thin atmosphere. "I've gone nuts," he pronounced with a curious calm. "Stark, staring nuts." Loy's box, with its recorded English words and its sonic detectors, could translate for its master, too. As the man spoke, Loy read the illuminated symbols in his own language, flashed in a frosted crystal plate before him. Thus he knew what Ned Vince was saying. Loy Chuck pressed more keys, and the box reproduced his answer. "No, Ned, not nuts. Not a bit of it. There are just a lot of things that you've got to get used to, that's all. You drowned about 1,000,000 years ago. I discovered your body. I brought you back to life. We have science that can do that. I'm Loy Chuck." It took only a moment for the box to tell the full story in clear, bold, friendly terms. Thus Loy sought with calm human logic to make his charge feel at home. Probably, though, he was a fool to suppose that he could succeed thus. Vince started to mutter, struggling desperately to reason it out. "Prairie dog," he said, "speaking to me. 1,000,000 years, evolution. The scientists say that people grew up from fishes in the sea. Prairie dogs are smart, so maybe super prairie dogs could come from them. A lot easier than men from fish." It was all sound logic. Even Ned Vince knew that. Still, his mind, tuned to ordinary simple things, couldn't quite realize all the vast things that had happened to himself and to the world. The scope of it all was too staggeringly big. 1,000,000 years. God! Ned Vince made a last effort to control himself. His knuckles tightened on the edge of the vat. "I don't know what you've been talking about," he grated wildly, "but I want to get out of here. I want to go back where I came from. Do you understand? Whoever or whatever you are." Loy Chuck pressed more keys. "But you can't go back to the 20th century," said the box. "Nor is there any better place for you to be now than Ka-Ra. You are the only man left on Earth. Those men that exist in other star systems are not really your kind anymore, though their forefathers originated on this planet. They have gone far beyond you in evolution. To them you would only be a senseless curiosity. You are much better off with my people. Our minds are much like yours. We will take care of you and make you comfortable." But Ned Vince wasn't listening now. "You are the only man left on Earth." That had been enough for him to hear. He didn't more than half believe it. His mind was too confused for conviction about anything. Everything he saw and felt and heard might be some kind of nightmare. But then it might all be real instead, and that was abysmal horror. Ned was no coward. Death and danger of any ordinary earthly kind he could have faced bravely, but the loneliness here and the utter strangeness were hideous, like being stranded alone in another world. His heart was pounding heavily, and his eyes were wide. He looked across this eerie room. There was a ramp there, the other side leading upward instead of a stairway. Fierce impulse to escape this nameless lair, try to learn the facts for himself, possessed him. He bounded out of the vat with head down, dashed for the ramp. He had to go most of the way on his hands and knees, for the upslanting passage was low. Excited animal chucklings around him, and the occasional touch of a furry body hurried his feverish scrambling. But he emerged at last at the surface. He stood there, panting in that frigid, rarefied air. It was night. The moon was a gigantic, pockmarked bulk. The constellations were unrecognizable. The rodent city was a glowing expanse of shallow, crystalline domes set among odd scrub trees and bushes. The crags loomed on all sides, all of their jaggedness lost after 1,000,000 years of erosion under an ocean that was gone. In that ghastly moonlight, the ground glistened with dry salt. Well, I guess it's all true, huh? Ned Vince muttered in a flat tone. Behind him he heard an excited, squeaky chattering, rodents in pursuit. Looking back, he saw the pinpoint gleams of countless little eyes. Yes, he might as well be in exile on another planet. So changed had the earth become. A wave of intolerable homesickness came over him as he sensed the distances of time that had passed, those inconceivable eons, separating himself from his friends, from Betty, from almost everything that was familiar. He started to run away from those glittering rodent eyes. He sensed death in that cold sea bottom, but what of it? What reason did he have left to live? He'd be only a museum piece here, a thing to be caged and studied. Prison or a madhouse world would be far better. He tried to get hold of his courage, but what was there to inspire it? Nothing. He laughed harshly as he ran, welcoming that bitter, killing cold. Nostalgia had him in its clutch, and there was no answer in his hell world lost beyond the barrier of the years. Loy Chuck and his followers presently came upon Ned Vince's unconscious form a mile from the city of Ka-Ra. In a flying machine they took him back and applied stimulants. He came to in the same laboratory room as before, but he was firmly strapped to a low platform this time, so that he could not escape again. There he lay, helpless, until presently an idea occurred to him. It gave him a few crumbs of hope. "Hey, somebody!" he called. "You'd better get some rest, Ned Vince," came the answer from the black box. It was Loy Chuck speaking again. "But listen," Ned protested. "You know a lot more than we did in the 20th century, and, well, there's that thing called time travel that I used to read about. Maybe you know how to make it work. Maybe you could send me back to my own time after all." Little Loy Chuck was in a black, discouraged mood himself. He could understand the utter, sick dejection of this giant from the past, lost from his own kind, probably insanity looming. In far less extreme circumstances than this, death from homesickness had come. Loy Chuck was a scientist. In common with all real scientists, regardless of the species from which they spring, he loved the subject of his researches. He wanted this ancient man to live and to be happy, or this creature would be of scant value for study. So Loy considered carefully what Ned Vince had suggested. Time travel. Almost a legend, an assault upon an intangible wall that had baffled far keener wits than Loy's. But he was bent, now, on the well-being of this anachronism he had so miraculously resurrected, this human, this Kali. Loy jabbed buttons on the black box. "Yes, Ned Vince," said the sonic apparatus. "Time travel. Perhaps that is the only thing to do, to send you back to your own period of history, for I see that you will never be yourself here. It will be hard to accomplish, but we'll try. Now I shall put you under an anesthetic." Ned felt better immediately, for there was real hope now, where there had been none before. Maybe he'd be back in his hometown of Harwich again. Maybe he'd see the old machine shop there, and the trees greening out in spring. Maybe he'd be seeing Betty Moore in Hurley soon. Ned relaxed as a tiny hypo needle bit into his arm. As soon as Ned Vince passed into unconsciousness, Loy Chuck went to work once more, using that pair of brain helmets again, exploring carefully the man's mind. After hours of research, he proceeded to prepare his plans. The government of Ka-Ra was a scientific oligarchy, of which Loy was a prime member. It would be easy to get the help he needed. A horde of small, gray-furred beings and their machines toiled for many days. Ned Vince's mind swam gradually out of the blur that had enveloped it. He was wandering aimlessly about in a familiar room. The girders of the roof above were of red-painted steel. His tool benches were there, greasy and littered with metal filings, just as they had always been. He had a tractor to repair, and a seed drill. Outside of the machine shop, the old familiar yellow sun was shining. Across the street was the small brown house where he lived. With a sudden startlement, he saw Betty Moore in the doorway. She wore a blue dress, and a mischievous smile curved her lips, as though she had succeeded in creeping up on him for a surprise. "Why, Ned," she chuckled, "you look as though you've been dreaming and just woke up." He grimaced ruefully as she approached. With a kind of fierce gratitude, he took her in his arms. Yes, she was just like always. I guess I was dreaming, Betty," he whispered, feeling that mighty sense of relief. "I must have fallen asleep at the bench here and had a nightmare. I thought I had an accident at Pit Bend, and that a lot of worse things happened, but it wasn't true." Ned Vince's mind, over which there was still an elusive fog that he did not try to shake off, accepted apparent facts simply. He did not know anything about the invisible radiations beating down upon him, soothing and dimming his brain so that it would never question or doubt or observe too closely the incongruous circumstances that must often appear. The lack of traffic in the street, without, for instance, and the lack of people besides himself and Betty. He didn't know that this machine shop was built from his own memories of the original. He didn't know that this Betty was of the same origin, a miraculous fabrication of metal and energy units and soft plastic. The trees outside were only lantern-slide illusions. It was all built inside a great, opaque dome. But there were hidden television systems, too. Thus Loy Chuck's kind could study this ancient man, this Kali. Thus their motives were mostly selfish. Loy, though, was not observing now. He had wandered far out into cold, sad sea bottom to ponder. He squeaked and chatted to himself, contemplating the magnificent, inexorable march of the ages. He remembered the ancient ruins left by the final Supermen. "The Kali believes himself home," Loy was thinking. "He will survive and be happy." But there was no other way. Time is an eternal wall. Our archaeological researches among the cities of the Supermen show the truth. Even they who once ruled Earth never escaped from the present by so much as an instant. So what'd you guys think of that one? I thought that was pretty good. You're all so quiet. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. You're cooking. Alrighty then. Well, absolutely. KC, yeah. I know, like advanced prairie dogs, which I think is hilarious, but I love it. Alrighty then. Oh, I'm glad you guys liked it. Well, this next one is a little different. It is called Unborn Tomorrow by Mac Reynolds. Betty looked up from her magazine. She said mildly, "You're late." "Don't yell at me. I feel awful," Simon told her. He sat down at his desk, passed his tongue over his teeth in distaste, groaned, fumbled in a drawer for the aspirin bottle. He looked over at Betty and said, almost as though reciting, "What I need is a vacation." "What," Betty said, "are you going to use money for?" "Providence," Simon told her whilst fiddling with the aspirin bottle, "will provide." But before providing vacations, it'd be nice if Providence turned up a missing jewel deal, say. Something where you could deduce that actually the ruby ring had gone down the drain and was caught in the elbow. Something that would net about $50. Simon said, mournful of tone, $50? Why not make it $500? "I'm not selfish," Betty said. "All I want is enough to pay me this week's salary." "Money," Simon said. "When you took this job, you said it was the romance that appealed to you." "Mm-hmm. I didn't know most sleuthing amounted to snooping around department stores to check on the clerks knocking down." Simon said enigmatically, "Now it comes." There was a knock. Betty bounced up with Olympic agility and had the door swinging wide before the knocking was quite completed. He was old, little, and had bug eyes behind pince-nez glasses. His suit was cut in the style of yesteryear, but when a suit costs $200 or $300, you still cast whatever the styling. Simon said unenthusiastically, "Good morning, Mr. Oyster." He indicated the client's chair. "Sit down, sir." The client fussed himself with Betty's assistance into the seat. Bug-eyed Simon said finally, "You know my name. That's pretty good. Never saw you before in my life. Stop fussing with me, young lady. Your ad in the phone book says you'll investigate anything." "Anything," Simon said. "Only one exception." "Excellent. Do you believe in time travel?" Simon said nothing. Across the room where she had resumed her seat, Betty cleared her throat. When Simon continued to say nothing, she ventured, "Time travel is impossible." "Why?" "Why?" "Yes, why?" Betty looked to her boss for assistance. None was forthcoming. There ought to be some very quick, positive, definite answer. She said, "Well, for one thing, paradox. Suppose you had a time machine and traveled back 100 years or so and killed your own great-grandfather. Then how could you ever be born?" "Confound it if I know," the little fellow growled. "How?" Simon said, "Let's get to the point. What you wanted to see me about?" "I want to hire you to hunt me up some time travelers," the old boy said. Betty was too far in now to maintain her proper role of silent secretary. "Time travelers," she said, not very intelligently. The potential client sat more erect, obviously with intent to hold the floor for a time. He removed the pince-nez glasses and pointed them at Betty. He said, "Have you read much science fiction, miss?" Some, Betty admitted. Then you'll realize that there are a dozen explanations of the paradoxes of time travel. Every writer in the field worth his salt has explained them away. But to get on, it's my contention that within a century or so, man will have solved the problems of immortality and eternal youth. And it's also my suspicion that he will eventually be able to travel in time. So convinced am I of these possibilities that I am willing to gamble a portion of my fortune to investigate the presence in our era of such time travelers. Simon seemed incapable of carrying the ball this morning, so Betty said, "But, Mr. Oyster, if the future has developed time travel, why don't we ever meet such travelers?" Simon put in a word. "The usual explanation, Betty, is that they can't afford to allow the space-time continuum track to be altered. If, say, a time traveler returned to a period of 25 years ago and shot Hitler, then all subsequent history would be changed. In that case, the time traveler himself might never be born. They have to read mighty carefully." Mr. Oyster was pleased. "I didn't expect you to be so well informed on the subject, young man." Simon shrugged and fumbled again with the aspirin bottle. Mr. Oyster went on. "I've been considering the matter for some time, and—" Simon held up a hand. "There's no use prolonging this. As I understand it, you're an elderly gentleman with a considerable fortune, and you realize that thus far nobody has succeeded in taking it with him." Mr. Oyster returned his glasses to their perched, bug-eyed Simon, then nodded. Simon said, "You want to hire me to find a time traveler in some manner or other, any manner will do, exhort him from the secret of eternal life and youth which you figure the future will have discovered. You're willing to pony up a part of this fortune of yours, if I can deliver a bona fide time traveler." "Right." Betty had been looking from one to the other. Now she said plaintively, "But where are you going to find one of these characters? Especially if they're interested in keeping hid." The old boy was the center again. "I told you I'd been considering it for some time. The Oktoberfest, that's where they'd be." He seemed elated. Betty and Simon waited. "The Oktoberfest," he repeated. "The greatest festival in the world has ever seen. The carnival, fiesta to beat them all. Every year it's held in Munich. Makes the New Orleans Mardi Gras look like a quilting party." He began to swing into the spirit of his description. "It originally started in celebration of the wedding of some local prince a century and a half ago, and the Bavarians had such a bang-up time they've been holding it every year since. The Munich breweries do up a special beer, Marzenbrau they call it, and each brewery opens a tremendous tent on fairgrounds which will hold 5,000 customers apiece. Millions of liters of beer are put away, hundreds of thousands of barbecued chickens, a small herd of oxen are roasted whole over spits, millions of pair of weisswurst, a very special sausage, millions upon millions of pretzels." "All right," Simon said. "We'll accept it. The Oktoberfest is one—" "Are you freaking serious?" Freaking TikTok. You won't even send my live to anybody, and you're freaking accusing me of being a freaking bot. Jesus Christmas. Thank you, Fairy Lotus. Trying not to be supremely frustrated. Gotta do the little puzzle piece thing. Maybe it's my beard. They can't see my mouth. I don't know. Well, the old boy pursued into his subject now. That's where they'd be, places like the Oktoberfest. For one thing, a time traveler wouldn't be conspicuous. At a festival like this, somebody with a strange accent or who didn't know exactly how to wear his clothes correctly, or was off the ordinary in any of a dozen other ways, wouldn't be noticed. You could be a four-armed space traveler from Mars, and you still wouldn't be conspicuous at the Oktoberfest. People would figure they had DTs. But why would a time traveler want to go to a... Betty began. Why not? What better opportunity to study a people than when they are in their cups? If you could go back a few thousand years, the things you would wish to see would be a Roman triumph, perhaps the rites of Dionysus, or one of Alexander's orgies. You wouldn't want to wander up and down the streets of, say, Athens while nothing was going on, particularly when you might be revealed as a suspicious character not being able to speak the language, not knowing how to wear the clothes, and not familiar with the city's layout. He took a deep breath. No, ma'am, you'd have to stick to some great event, both for the sake of actual interest and for protection against being unmasked. The old boy wound it up. Well, that's the story. What are your rates? The Oktoberfest starts on Friday and continues for 16 days. You can take the plane to Munich, spend a week there, and... Simon was shaking his head. Not interested. As soon as Betty had got her jaw back in place, she glared unbelievingly at him. Mr. Oyster was taken aback himself. See here, young man, I realize this isn't an ordinary assignment. However, as I said, I am willing to risk a considerable portion of my fortune. Sorry, Simon said. Can't be done. $100 a day plus expenses, Mr. Oyster said quietly. I like the fact that you already seem to have some interest and knowledge of the matter. I liked the way you knew my name when I walked in the door. My picture doesn't appear often in the papers. No go, Simon said, a sad quality in his voice. A $50,000 bonus if you bring me a time traveler. Out of the question, Simon said. But why? Betty wailed. Just for laughs, Simon told the two of them sourly. Suppose I tell you a funny story. It goes like this. I got $1,000 from Mr. Oyster, Simon began, in the way of an advance, and leaving him with Betty, who was making out a receipt, I hustled back to the apartment and packed a bag. Hell, I'd wanted a vacation anyway. This was a natural. On the way to Idlewild, I stopped off at the German information offices for some tourist literature. It takes roughly 3.5 hours to get the gander from Idlewild. I spent the time planning the fun I was going to have. It takes roughly 7.5 hours from Gander to Shannon, and I spent that time dreaming up material I could put into my reports to Mr. Oyster. I was going to give him some kind of report for his money. Time travel yet. Pff, what a laugh. Between Shannon and Munich, a faint suspicion began to simmer in my mind. These statistics I read on the Oktoberfest in the Munich tourist pamphlets. 5 million people attended annually. Where did 5 million people come from to attend an overgrown festival in a comparatively remote southern Germany? The tourist season is over before September 21st, first day of the gigantic beer bust. Nor could the Germans account for any such number. Munich itself has a population of less than 1 million, counting children. And those millions of gallons of beer, the hundreds of thousands of chicken, the herds of oxen, who ponied up all the money for such expenditures? How could the average German with his $25 a week salary? In Munich, there was no hotel space available. I went to the Bahnhof, where they have a hotel service, and applied. They put my name down, pocketed the husky bribe, showed me where I could check my bag, told me they'd do what they could, and to report back in a few hours. I had another suspicious twinge. If 5 million people attended this beer bout, how were they accommodated? The Theresian Weiss, the fairground, was only a few blocks away. I was stiff from the plane ride, so I walked. There are 7 major brewers in the Munich area, each of them represented by one of the circus-like tents that Mr. Oyster mentioned. Each tent contained benches and tables for about 5,000 persons, and from 6 to 10,000 packed themselves in, competing for room. In the center is a tremendous bandstand, the musicians all lederhosen clad, the music as Bavarian as any to be found in a Bavarian beer hall. Hundreds of peasant-garbed Fräuleins darted about the tables with quart-sized earthenware mugs. Platters of chicken, sausage, kraut, and pretzels. I found a place finally at a table which had space for 20-odd beer bibbers. Odd is right, as weird as an assortment of Germans and foreign tourists as could have been dreamed up, ranging from a 70 or 80-year-old couple in a Bavarian costume to the bald-headed drunk across the table from me. A desperate waitress bringing 6 mugs of beer in each hand scurried past. They called them masses, by the way, not mugs. The bald-headed character and I both held up a finger, and she slid 2 of the masses over to us, and then hustled on. "Down the hatch," the other said, holding up his mass and toast. "To the ladies," I told him before sipping. I said, the tourist pamphlets say this stuff is 18%. That's nonsense. No beer is that strong. I took a long pull. He looked at me, waiting. I came up. "Mistaken," I admitted. A mass or 2 apiece later, he looked carefully at the name engraved on his earthenware mug. "Lowenbrau," he said. He took a small notebook from his pocket and a pencil, noted down the word, and returned the things. "That's a queer-looking pencil you have there," I told him. "German?" "Venusian," he said. "Oops. Sorry, shouldn't have said that." I had never heard of the brand, so I skipped it. "Next is the Hofbrau," he said. "Next what?" Baldy's conversation didn't seem to hang together very well. "My pilgrimage," he told me. "All my life I've been wanting to go back to an Oktoberfest and sample every one of the 7 brands of the best beer the world has ever known. I'm only as far as Lowenbrau. I'm afraid I'll never make it." I finished my mass. "I'll help you," I told him. "Very noble endeavor. Name is Simon." "Arth," he said. "How could you help?" "I'm still fresh, comparatively. I'll navigate you around. There are 7 beer tents. How many have you got through?" "2, counting this one," Arth said. I looked at him. "It's going to be a chore," I said. "You've already got a nice edge on." Outside, as we made our way to the next tent, the fair looked like every big state fair ever seen, except it was bigger. Games, souvenir stands, sausage stands, rides, sideshows, and people. The Hofbrau tent was overflowing as the last, but we managed to find 2 seats. The brand was blaring, and 5,000 half-swacked voices were roaring in accompaniment. "In München steht ein Hofbraus. 1, 2, Gustva." At the Gustva, everybody upped with the mugs and drank each other's health. "This is what I call a real beer bust," I said approvingly. Arth was waving to a waitress. As in the Lowenbrau tent, a full quart was the smallest amount available. A beer later, I said, "I don't know if you'll make it or not, Arth." "Make what?" "All 7 tents." "Oh." A waitress was on her way by, mugs foaming over their rims. I gestured to her for refills. "Where are you from, Arth?" I asked him in a way of making conversation. 2183. 2183 where? He looked at me, closing one eye to focus better. Oh, he said. Well, 2183 South Street, New Albuquerque. New Albuquerque? Where's that? Arth thought about it, took another long pull at the beer. Right across the way from Old Albuquerque, he said finally. Maybe we ought to be getting on to the Fossbrow tent. Maybe we ought to eat something first, I said. I'm beginning to feel this. We could get some of that barbecued ox. Arth closed his eyes in pain. Vegetarian, he said. I couldn't possibly eat meat. Barbarous. Ugh. Well, we need some nourishment, I said. There's supposed to be considerable nourishment in beer. That made sense. I yelled, Fräulein, zweit nun Bier. Somewhere along in there, the fog rolled in. When it rolled out again, I found myself closing one eye the better to read the lettering on my earthenware mug. It read, Augustenbrau. Somehow, we've evidently navigated from one tent to another. Arth was saying, Where's your hotel? That seemed like a good question. I thought about it for a while. Finally, I said, Haven't got one. Town's jam-packed. I left my bag at the Bahnhof. I don't think we'll ever make it, Arth. How many we got to go? Lost track, Arth said. You can come home with me. He drank to that, and the fog rolled in again. When the fog rolled out, it was daylight, bright, glaring, awful daylight. I was sprawled, completely with clothes, on one of the twin beds. On the other bed, also completely clothed, was Arth. The sun was too much. I stumbled up from the bed, staggered to the window, and fumbled around for a blind or curtain. There was none. Behind me, a voice said in horror, Who? Do. Where'd you come from? I got a quick impression, looking out the window, that the Germans were certainly the most modern, futuristic people in the world, but I couldn't stand the light. Where's the shade? I moaned. Arth did something, and the window went opaque. That's quite a gadget, I groaned. If I didn't feel so lousy, I'd appreciate it. Arth was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding his bald head in his hands. I remember now, he sorrowed. You didn't have a hotel. What a stupidity. I'll be phased all the way down. You haven't got a handful of aspirin, have you? I asked. Just a minute, Arth said, staggering erect and heading for what undoubtedly was a bathroom. Stay where you are. Don't move. Don't touch anything. All right, I told him plaintively. I'm clean. I won't mess up the place. All I've got is a hangover, not lice. Arth was gone. He came back in 2 or 3 minutes, box of pills in his hand. Here, take one of these. I took the pill, followed it with a glass of water, and went out like a light. Arth was shaking my arm. Want another mass? The band was blaring, and 5,000 half-swacked voices were roaring in accompaniment. In München steht ein Hofbräu. 1, 2, Gesufe. At the Gesufe, everybody upped their king-size mugs and drank each other's health. My head was killing me. This is where I came in, or something, I groaned. Arth said, That was last night. He looked at me over the rim of his beer mug. Something somewhere was wrong, but I didn't care. I finished my mass and then remembered, I've got to get my bag. Oh, my head. Where did we spend last night? Arth said, and his voice sounded cautious, At my hotel, don't you remember? Not very well, I admitted. I feel lousy. I must have dimmed out. I've got to go to the Bahnhof and get my luggage. Arth didn't put up an argument on that. We said goodbye, and I could feel him watching after me as I pushed through the tables on the way out. At the Bahnhof, they could do me no good. There were no hotel rooms available in Munich. The head was getting worse by the minute. The fact that they'd somehow managed to lose my bag didn't help. I worked on that project for at least a couple of hours. Not only wasn't the bag at the luggage checking stand, but the attendant there evidently couldn't make heads nor tails of the check receipt. He didn't speak English, and my high school German was inadequate, especially accompanied by a block-busting hangover. I didn't get anywhere tearing my hair and complaining from one end of the Bahnhof to the other. I drew a blank on the bag, and the head was getting worse by the minute. I was bleeding to death through the eyes, and instead of butterflies, I had bats in my stomach. Believe me, nobody should drink a gallon or more of Marzenbrau. I decided the hell with it. I took a cab to the airport, presented my ticket, told them I wanted to leave on the first attainable plane to New York. I'd spent 2 days at the Oktoberfest, and I had had it. I got more guff there. Something was wrong with the ticket, wrong date or some such. They fixed that up. I was never clear on what was fouled up. Some clerk's error, evidently. The trip back was as uninteresting as the one over. As the hangover began to wear off a little, I was almost sorry I hadn't been able to stay. If I'd only been able to get a room, I would have stayed, I told myself. From Idlewild, I came directly to the office rather than going to my apartment. I figured I might as well check in with Betty. I opened the door, and there I found Mr. Oyster sitting in the chair he'd been occupying 4, or was it 5 days before when I'd left. I'd lost track of time. I said to him, "Glad you're here, sir. I can report." "Ah, what was it you came for?" Impatient to hear if I'd say any results. My mind was spinning like a whirling dervish in a revolving door. I'd spent a wad of his money and had nothing I could think of to show for it. Nothing but the last stages of a granddaddy hangover. "Came for?" Mr. Oyster snorted. "I'm merely waiting for your girl to make out my receipt. I thought you had already left." "You'll miss your plane," Betty said. There was suddenly a double dip of ice cream in my stomach. I walked over to my desk and looked down at the calendar. Mr. Oyster was saying something to the effect that if I didn't leave today, it would have to be tomorrow, that he hadn't ponied up that $1,000 advance for anything less than immediate service. Stuffing his receipt in his wallet, he fussed his way out the door. I said to Betty, hopefully, "I suppose you haven't changed this calendar since I left." Betty said, "What's the matter with you? You look funny. How did your clothes get so mussed?" "You tore the top sheet off that calendar yourself, not half an hour ago, just before this marble-missing client came in," she added. "Time travelers yet?" I tried just once more. When did you first see this Mr. Oyster?" "Never saw him before in my life," she said. "Not until he came in this morning." "This morning," I said weakly. Well, Betty stared at me as though it was me that needed candling by a head shrinker preparatory to be sent off to a pressure cooker. I fished in my pocket for my wallet, counted the contents, and winced at the pathetic remains of the 1,000. I said pleadingly, "Betty, listen, how long ago did I go out that door on the way to the airport?" "You've been acting sick all morning. You went out that door about 10 minutes ago, were gone about 3 minutes, then you came back." "See here," Mr. Oyster said, interrupting Simon's story. "Did you say this was supposed to be amusing? Did you say this was supposed to be amusing, young man? I don't find it so. In fact, I believe I'm being ridiculed." Simon shrugged, put one hand to his forehead, and said, "That's only the first chapter. There are 2 more." "I'm not interested in more," Mr. Oyster said. "I suppose your point was to show me how ridiculous the whole idea actually is. Very well, you've done it. Confound it. However,
I suppose your time, even when spent in this manner, has some value. Here is $50, and good day, sir." He slammed the door after him as he left. Simon winced at the noise, took the aspirin bottle from its drawer, took two, washed them down with water from the desk carafe. Betty looked at him admiringly, came to her feet, crossed over, and took up the $50. "Week's wages," she said. "I suppose that's one way of taking care of a crackpot. But I'm surprised you didn't take his money and enjoy that vacation you've been yearning."
"I did," Simon groaned. 3 times.
Betty stared at him. "You mean—" Simon nodded miserably. She said, "But Simon, $50,000 bonus. If that story was true, you should have gone back again to Munich. If there was one time traveler, there might have been—" "I keep telling you," Simon said bitterly. "I went back there 3 times. There were hundreds of them, probably thousands." He took a deep breath. "Listen, we're just going to have to forget about it. They're not going to stand for the space-time continuum track being altered. If something comes up that looks like it might result in the track being changed, they set you right back at the beginning and let things start for you all over again. They just can't allow anything to come back from the future and change the past." "You mean—" Betty was suddenly furious at him. "You've given up? Why, this is the biggest thing. Why, the $50,000 is nothing. The future, just think." Simon said wearily, "There's just one thing you can bring back with you from the future. A hangover compounded of a gallon or so of Marsenbrow. What's more, you can pile one on top of the other and another on top of that." He shuddered. "If you think I'm going to take another crack at this merry-go-round and pile a 4th hangover on the 3 I'm already nursing, all at once, you could think again."
I like that one. That one's good. That one was a little different. It was more fun than, crazy. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Right? Yeah. I like the twist ending, though. All right. Well, on to our feature story. Another time travel story. Name of that one is The Unborn Tomorrow by Mac Reynolds. And the first one was The Eternal Wall. This one comes courtesy of Ray Bradbury, and it is called A Sound of Thunder. The sign on the wall seemed to quaver under a film of sliding warm water. Eccles felt his eyelids blink over his stare, and the sign burned in this momentary... Excuse me. Holy cow. Oh, good Lord. I'm sorry about that. Holy crap. Eccles felt his eyelids blink over his stare, and the sign burned in this momentary darkness. Time Safari Incorporated. Safaris to any year in the past. You name the animal, we take you there, you shoot it. Warm phlegm gathered in Eccles' throat. He swallowed and pushed it down. The muscles around his mouth formed a smile as he put his hand slowly out upon the air, and in that hand waved a check for $10,000 to the man behind the desk. Does this safari guarantee I come back alive? We guarantee nothing, said the official, except the dinosaurs. He turned. This is Mr. Travis, our safari guide in the past.
He'll tell you what and where to shoot. If he says no shooting, no shooting. If you disobey instructions, there's a stiff penalty of another $10,000, plus possible government action on your return. Eccles glanced across the vast office at a mass and tangle, a snaking and humming of wires and steel boxes, at an aura that flickered now orange, now silver, now blue. There was a sound like a gigantic bonfire burning all of time, all the years and all the parchment calendars, all the hours piled up high and set aflame. A touch of the hand in this burning world on the instant beautifully reverse itself. Eccles remembered the wording in the advertisements to the letter. Out of chars and ashes, out of dust and coals, like golden salamanders, the old years, the green years, might leap, roses sweet in the air, white hair turn Irish black, wrinkles vanish, everything fly back to seed, flee death, rush down to their beginnings, suns rise in western skies and set in glorious easts, moons eat themselves opposite the custom, and all and everything cupping one another like Chinese boxes, rabbits into hats, all and everything returning to the fresh death, the seed death, the green death, to the time before the beginning. A touch of a hand might do it, the merest touch of a hand. Unbelievable, Eccles breathed, the light of the machine on his thin face. A real time machine. He shook his head. Makes you think. If the election had gone badly yesterday, I might be there now, running away from the results. Thank God Keith won. He'll make a fine president of the United States. Yes, said the man behind the desk. We're lucky. If Deutscher had gotten in, we'd have the worst kind of dictatorship. There's an anti-everything man for you. Militarist, antichrist, anti-human, anti-intellectual. People called us up, joking but not joking, said if Deutscher became president, they wanted to go live in 1492. Of course, it's not our business to conduct escapes, but to form safaris. Anyway, Keith's president now. All you got to worry about is shooting my dinosaur. Eccles finished it for him. A Tyrannosaurus Rex, the tyrant lizard, the most incredible monster in history. Sign this release. Anything happens to you, we're not responsible. Those dinosaurs are hungry. Eccles flushed angrily. Trying to scare me? Frankly, yes. We don't want anyone going who'll panic at the first shot. 6 safari leaders were killed last year and a dozen hunters. We're here to give you the severest thrill a real hunter ever asked for, traveling you back 60 million years to bag the biggest game in all of time. Your personal check's still there. Tear it up, Mr. Eccles. Mr. Eccles looked at the check. His fingers twitched. Good luck, said the man behind the desk. Mr. Travis, he's all yours. They moved silently across the room, taking their guns with them toward the machine, toward the silver metal and the roaring light. First a day, then a night, then a day, then a night. Then it was day, night, day, night, day, night. A week, a month, a year, a decade, AD 2055, AD 2019, 1999, 1957, gone. The machine roared. They put on their oxygen helmets and tested the intercoms. Eccles swayed on the padded seat, his face pale, his jaw stiff. He felt the trembling in his arms, and he looked down and found his hands tight on the new rifle. There were 4 other men in the machine. Travis, the safari leader, his assistant L'Esperance, and 2 other hunters, Billings and Kramer. They sat looking at each other, and the years blazed around them. Can these guns get a dinosaur cold? Eccles felt his mouth saying. If you hit them right, said Travis on the helmet radio. Some dinosaurs have 2 brains, one in the head, another far down the spinal column. We stay away from those. That's stretching luck. Put your first 2 shots into the eyes if you can, blind 'em, and go back into the brain. The machine howled. Time was a film run backward. Suns fled, and 10 million moons fled after them. Think, said Eccles. Every hunter that ever lived would envy us today. This makes Africa seem like Illinois. The machine slowed. Its scream fell to a murmur. The machine stopped. The sun stopped in the sky. The fog that had enveloped the machine blew away, and they were in an old time. A very old time indeed. 3 hunters and 2 safari heads with their blue metal guns across their knees. Christ isn't born yet, said Travis. Moses has not gone to the mountains to talk to God. The pyramids are still on the earth, waiting to be cut out and put up. Remember that. Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon, Hitler, none of them exists. The man nodded. That, Mr. Travis pointed, is the jungle of 60,002,555 years before President Keith. He indicated a metal path that struck off into the green wilderness over a streaming swamp among giant ferns and palms. And that, he said, is the path laid by Time Safari for your use. It floats 6 inches above the earth, doesn't touch so much as one grass blade or flower or tree. It's an anti-gravity metal. Its purpose is to keep you from touching this world of the past in any way. Stay on the path. Don't go over it. Don't go off it. I repeat, don't go off for any reason. If you fall off, there's a penalty. And don't shoot any animal we don't okay. Why? Asked Eccles. They sat in the ancient wilderness. Far birds' cries flew on a wind, and the smell of tar and an old salt sea, moist grasses and flowers the color of blood. We don't want to change the future. We don't belong here in the past. The government doesn't like us here. We have to pay big graft to keep our franchise. A time machine is finicky business. Not knowing it, we might kill an important animal, a small bird, a roach, a flower even, thus destroying an important link to a growing species. That's not clear, said Eccles. All right, Travis continued. Say we accidentally kill one mouse here. That means all the future families of this one particular mouse are destroyed, right? Right. And all the families of the families of the families of that one mouse. With a stamp of your foot, you annihilate first 1, then 12, then 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000 possible mice. So they're dead, so what? So what? Travis snorted quietly. Well, what about the foxes that'll need those mice to survive? For want of 10 mice, a fox dies. For want of 10 foxes, a lion starves. For want of a lion, all manner of insects, vultures, infinite billions of life forms are thrown into chaos and destruction. Eventually, it all boils down to this. 59 million years later, a caveman, one of a dozen on the world, goes hunting wild boar or saber-toothed tiger for food. But you, friend, have stepped on all the tigers in that region by stepping on one single mouse. So the caveman starves. And the caveman, please note, is not just any expendable man. No, he is an entire future nation. From his loins would have sprung 10 sons, from their loins 100 sons, and thus onward to a civilization. Destroy this one man, and you destroy a race, a people, an entire history of life. It's comparable to slaying some of Adam's grandchildren. The stomp of your foot on one mouse could start an earthquake, the effects of which could shake our earth and destinies down through time, to their very foundations. With the death of that one caveman, 1 billion others not yet unborn are throttled in the womb. Perhaps Rome never rises on its 7 hills. Perhaps Europe is forever a dark forest, and only Asia waxes healthy and teeming. Step on a mouse and you crush the pyramids. Step on a mouse and you leave your print like a Grand Canyon across eternity. Queen Elizabeth might never be born. Washington might not cross the Delaware. There might never be a United States at all. So be careful. Stay on the path. Never step off. I see, said Eccles. Then it wouldn't pay for us to even touch the grass. Correct. Crushing certain plants could add up infinitesimally. A little error here could multiply in 60 million years, all out of proportion. Of course, maybe our theory is wrong. Maybe time can't be changed by us. Or maybe it can be changed only in little subtle ways. A dead mouse here makes an insect imbalance there, a population disproportion later, a bad harvest further on, a depression, mass starvation, and finally a change in social temperament in far-flung countries. Something much more subtle like that. Perhaps only a soft breath, a whisper, a hair, pollen on the air, such a slight change that unless you looked close you wouldn't see it. Who knows? Who can really say he knows? We don't know. We're guessing. But until we do know for certain whether our messing around in time can make a big roar or a little rustle in history, we're being careful. This machine, this path, your clothing and bodies were sterilized, as you know, before the journey. We wear these oxygen helmets so we can't introduce our bacteria into an ancient atmosphere. How do we know which animals to shoot? They're marked with red paint, said Travis. Today, before our journey, we sent Lesperance here back with the machine. He came to this particular area and followed certain animals, studying them. Right, said Lesperance. I tracked them through their entire existence, noting which of them lives longest, very few. How many times they mate, not often. Life's short. When I find one that's going to die when a tree falls on him, or one that drowns in a tar pit, I note the exact hour, minute, and second. I shoot a paint bomb. It leaves a red patch on his side. We can't miss it. Then I correlate our arrival in the past so that we meet the monster not more than 2 minutes before he would have died anyway. This way we only kill animals with no future, that are never going to mate again. You see how careful we are? But if you come back this morning in time, said Eccles, eagerly you must have bumped into us, our Savari. How did it turn out? Was it successful? Did all of us get through alive? Travis and Lesperance gave each other a look. That'd be a paradox, said the latter. Time doesn't permit that sort of mesa, a man meeting himself. When such occasions threaten, time steps aside, like an airplane hitting an air pocket. You felt the machine jump just before we stopped. That was us passing ourselves on the way back to the future. We saw nothing. There's no way of telling if this expedition was a success, if we got our monster, or whether all of us, meaning you, Mr. Eccles, got out alive. Eccles smiled palely. Cut that, said Travis sharply. Everyone on his feet. They were ready to leave the machine. The jungle was high, and the jungle was broad, and the jungle was the entire world forever and ever. Sounds like music and sounds like flying tents filled the sky. And those were pterodactyls soaring with cavernous gray wings, gigantic bats of delirium and night fever. Eccles balanced on the narrow path, aimed his rifle playfully. Stop that, said Travis. Don't even aim for fun, blast you, if your guns should go off. Eccles flushed. Where's our Tyrannosaurus? Lesperance checked his wristwatch. Up ahead. We'll bisect his trail in 60 seconds. Look for the red paint. Don't shoot till we give the word. Stay on the path. Stay on the path. They moved forward in the wind of morning. Strange, murmured Eccles. Up ahead, 60 million years. Election day over. Keith made president. Everyone's celebrating, and here we are, 1 million years lost, and they don't exist. The things we worried about for months, a lifetime, not even born or thought of yet. Safety catches off, everyone, ordered Travis. You, first shot. Eccles, second. Billings, third. Kramer. I've hunted tiger, wild boar, buffalo, elephant, but now this is it, said Eccles. I'm shaking like a kid. Ah, said Travis. Everyone stopped. Travis raised his hand. Ahead, he whispered. In the mist, there he is. There's his royal majesty now. The jungle was wide and full of twitterings, rustlings, murmurs, and sighs. Suddenly, it all ceased, as if someone had shut a door. Silence, a sound of thunder. Out of the mist, 100 yards away, came Tyrannosaurus Rex. It, whispered Eccles. It, shh! It came on great, oiled, resilient, striding legs. It towered 30 feet above half the trees, a great, evil god, folding its delicate watchmaker's claws close to its oily reptilian chest. Each lower leg was a piston, 1,000 pounds of white bone, sunk in thick ropes of muscles, sheathed over in a gleam of pebbled skin like the mail of a terrible warrior. Each thigh was a ton of meat, ivory and steel mesh. And from the great breathing cage of the upper body, whose 2 delicate arms dangled out in front, arms with hands which might pick up and examine men like toys, while the snake neck coiled, and the head itself, a ton of sculptured stone, lifted easily upon the sky. Its mouth gaped, exposing a fence of teeth like daggers. Its eyes rolled, ostrich eggs, empty of all expression save hunger. It closed its mouth in a death grin. It ran, its pelvic bones crushing aside trees and bushes, its taloned feet clawing damp earth, leaving prints 6 inches deep wherever it settled its weight. It ran with a gliding ballet step, far too poised and balanced for its 10 tons. It moved into a sunlit area, wary, its beautiful reptilian hands feeling the air. Why? Eccles twitched his mouth. It could reach up and grab the moon. Shh! Travis jerked angrily. He hasn't seen us yet. It can be killed, Eccles pronounced this verdict quietly, as if there could be no argument. He had weighed the evidence, and this was his considered option. The rifle in his hand seemed a cap gun. We're fools to come. This is impossible. Shut up, hissed Travis. Turn around, commanded Travis. Walk quietly to the machine. We'll remit half your fee. I didn't realize it would be this big, said Eccles. I miscalculated, that's all, and now I want out. It sees us. There's the red paint on its chest. The tyrant lizard raised itself. Its armored flesh glittered like 1,000 green coins. The coins, crusted with slime, steamed. In the slime, tiny insects wriggled so that its entire body seemed to twitch and undulate, even while the monster itself did not move. It exhaled. The stink of raw flesh blew down the wilderness. Get me out of here, said Eccles. It was never like this before. I was always sure I'd come through alive. I had good guides, good safaris, and safety. This time, I figured wrong. I've met my match, I admit it. This is too much for me to get hold of. Don't run, said L'Esperance. Turn around, hide in the machine. Yes. Eccles seemed to be numb. He looked at his feet as if trying to make them move. He gave a grunt of helplessness. Eccles! He took a few steps, blinking, shuffling. Not that way! The monster, at the first motion, lunged forward with a terrible scream. It covered 100 yards in 6 seconds. The rifles jerked up and blazed fire. A windstorm from the beast's mouth engulfed them in the stench of slime and old blood. The monster roared, teeth glittering with the sun. The rifles cracked again. Their sound was lost in shriek and lizard thunder. The great level of the reptile's tail swung up, lashed sideways. Trees exploded in clouds of leaf and branch. The monster twitched its jeweler's hands down to fondle at the men, to twist them in half, to crush them like berries, to cram them into its teeth and its screaming throat. Its boulder stone eyes leveled with the men. They saw themselves mirrored. They fired at the metallic eyelids and the blazing black iris. Like a stone idol, like a mountain avalanche, Tyrannosaurus fell. Thundering, it clutched trees, pulled them with it. It wrenched and tore the metal path. The men flung themselves back and away. The body hit 10 tons of cold flesh and stone. The guns fired. The monster lashed its armored tail, twitched its snake jaws, and lay still. A fount of blood spurted from its throat. Somewhere inside, a sack of fluids burst. Sickening gushes drenched the hunters. They stood, red and glistening. The thunder faded. The jungle was silent. After the avalanche, a green peace. After the nightmare, morning. Billings and Kramer sat on the pathway and threw up. Travis and Lesperance stood with smoking rifles, cursing steadily. In the time machine, on his face, Eccles lay shivering. He had found his way back to the path, climbed into the machine. Travis came walking, glanced at Eccles, took a cotton gauze from a metal box, and returned to the others who were sitting on the path. "Clean up." They wiped the blood from their helmets. They began to curse, too. The monster lay, a hill of solid flesh. Within, you could hear the sighs and murmurs as the furthest chambers of it died. The organs malfunctioning, liquids running, a final instant pocket to sac spleen. Everything shutting off, closing up forever. It was like standing by a wrecked locomotive or a steam shovel at quitting time, all valves being released or levered tight, bones cracked, the tonnage of its own flesh off balance, dead weight snapped the delicate forearms, caught underneath. The meat settled, quivering. Another cracking sound. Overhead, a gigantic tree branch broke from its heavy mooring, fell. It crashed upon the dead beast with finality. "There?" Lesperance checked his watch. "Right on time. That's the giant tree that was scheduled to fall and kill this animal originally." He glanced at the two hunters. "You want the trophy picture?" "What?" "We can't take a trophy back to the future. The body has to stay right here where it would have died originally so the insects, birds, and bacteria can get at it. So they were intended to. Everything in balance. The body stays, but we can take a picture of you standing near it." The two men tried to think, but gave up, shaking their heads. They let themselves be led along the metal path. They sank wearily into the machine cushions. They gazed back at the ruined monster. The stagnating mound, where already strange reptilian birds and golden insects were busy at the steaming armor. A sound on the floor of the time machine stiffened them. Eccles sat there, shivering. "I'm sorry," he said at last. "Get up!" cried Travis. Eccles got up. "Go out on that path alone," said Travis. He had his rifle pointed. "You're not coming back in the machine. We're leaving you here." Lesperance seized Travis's arm. "Wait!" Stay out of this. Travis shook his hand away. This fool nearly killed us. But it isn't that so much. No, it's his shoes. Look at them. He ran off the path. That ruins us. We'll forfeit thousands of dollars of insurance. We guarantee no one leaves the path. He left it. Oh, the fool. I'll have to report to the government. They might revoke our license to travel. Who knows what he's done to time, to history. Take it easy. All he did was kick up some dirt. How do we know? Cried Travis. We don't know anything. It's all a mystery. Get out of here, Eccles. Eccles fumbled his shirt. I'll pay anything. $100,000. Travis glared at Eccles' checkbook and spat. Go out there. The monster is next to the path. Stick your arms up to your elbows in its mouth. Then you can come back with us. That's unreasonable. The monster's dead, you idiot. The bullets can't be left behind. They don't belong in the past. They might change anything. Here's my knife. Dig them out. The jungle was alive again, full of the old tremorings and bird cries. Eccles turned slowly to regard the primeval garbage dump, that hill of nightmares and terrors. After a long time, like a sleepwalker, he shuffled out along the path. He returned, shuddering 5 minutes later, his arms soaked and red to the elbows. He held out his hands. Each held a number of steel bullets. Then he fell. He lay where he fell, not moving. You didn't have to make him do that, said Lesperance. Didn't I? It's too early to tell. Travis nudged the still body. He'll live. Next time he won't go hunting game like this. Okay. He jerked his thumb warily at Lesperance. Switch on, let's go home. 1492, 1776, 1812. They cleaned their hands and faces. They changed their caking shirts and pants. Eccles was up and around again, not speaking. Travis glared at him for a full 10 minutes. Don't look at me, said Eccles. I haven't done anything. Who can tell? Just ran off the path, that's all. A little mud on my shoes. What do you want me to dodge down and pray? We might need it. I'm warning you, Eccles. I might kill you yet. I've got my gun ready. I'm innocent. I've done nothing. 1999, 2000, 2055. The machine stopped. Get out, said Travis. The room was there as they left it, but not the same as they had left it. The same man sat behind the same desk, but the same man did not quite sit behind the same desk. Travis looked around swiftly. Everything okay here? He snapped. Fine. Welcome home. Travis did not relax. He seemed to be looking through one high window. Okay, Eccles, get out. Don't ever come back. Eccles could not move. You heard me, said Travis. What are you staring at? Eccles stood smelling of the air, and there was a thing to the air, a chemical taint so subtle, so slight, that only a faint cry of his subliminal senses warned him it was there. The colors, white, gray, blue, orange, in the wall, in the furniture, the sky beyond the window were, and there was a feel. His flesh twitched, his hands twitched. He stood drinking the oddness with the pores of his body. Somewhere, someone must have been screaming one of those whistles that only a dog can hear. His body screamed in silence in return. Beyond this room, beyond this wall, beyond this man who was not quite the same man seated at this desk that was not quite the same desk, lay an entire world of streets and people. What sort of world was it now? There was no telling. He could feel them moving there, beyond the walls almost, like so many chess pieces blown in a dry wind. But the immediate thing was the sign painted on the office wall, the same sign he had read earlier today on the first entering. Somehow the sign had changed. Eccles himself fell into a chair. He fumbled crazily at the thick slime on his boots. He held up a clod of dirt, trembling. No. Not a little thing like that, no. Embedded in the mud, glistening green and gold and black, was a butterfly. Very beautiful and very dead. Not a little thing like that, not a butterfly, cried Eccles. It fell to the floor, an exquisite thing, a small thing that could upset balances and knock down a line of small dominoes, and then big dominoes, and then gigantic dominoes, all down the years across time. Eccles' mind whirled. It couldn't change things. Killing one butterfly couldn't be that important, could it? His face was cold. His mouth trembled, asking, Who won the presidential election yesterday? The man behind the desk laughed. Are you joking? You know very well. Deutscher, of course. Who else? Not that fool weakling Keith. We've got an Iron Man now, a man with guts. The official stopped. What's wrong? Eccles moaned. He dropped to his knees. He scrabbled at the golden butterfly with shaking fingers. Can't we? He pleaded to the world, to himself, to the officials, to the machine. Can't we take it back? Can't we make it alive again? Can't we start over? Can't we? He did not move. Eyes shut. He waited, shivering. He heard Travis breathe loud in the room. He heard Travis shift his rifle, click the safety catch, and raise the weapon. There was a sound of thunder. And if you didn't catch it, that is where the phrase the butterfly effect comes from. Yep. Yep. Ray Bradbury never disappoints. Never disappoints. Kayla, awesome. Well, keep coming back and keep us posted. Thank you, Wings. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I was, like, what do I do tonight? And I had just picked up a couple of anthologies that were all related. There's 3 of them. They were all related to time travel. And I found these 3 stories in them, and yeah, they were all really good. So, but yep, I really enjoyed that. Super enjoyed that. Fairy Lotus, I'm glad I could help you get inspired. Oh, Queen of Denial, do tell. Of course, Crazy Mama. No, I haven't gotten a haircut recently. Still the same swoopy hair. Kayla, yes, I have some up on Audible. I'll give you the title of the two that I am actually most proud of. And you can look them up on Audible. First one is called Bane Birth, by Gabriel J. Smith. The author is a guy that I'm actually going to be working with again when he writes the next book. And the next one is called Nexus Point. And that one is by S.V. Stan. Another excellent guy. Those are the two that, you would... is it at the French restaurant? Oh, nice. I have heard stories that he's a really, really cool guy. Oh, nice, nice. Well, come back and let me know what you think of them once you've read them. I'll have a couple more going up, hopefully soon. I'm working on two. One is a dual narration, where I'm the secondary narrator, and I read all the male point of view and male dialogue. It is, I will warn you, very spicy. Like, I can't let my mother listen to it, I can tell you that much. And the other one's a standard, like, fantasy story. Nothing spicy about it. Oh, well, you'll like this one. I'll give you the title when it comes out, and I'll let everybody know when it's out. It's called Where Darkness Blooms. It's good. I'm enjoying narrating it, but there are words that I have said while narrating this book that I have said more times narrating the book than I have said that prior to any time in my life, and I'm 50 years old, so yeah. It was rather spicy. Well, you're welcome to listen to this one when it comes out, but don't say I didn't warn you if it changes your opinion of me. Oh, well, I am going to call it a night because I got to get up early tomorrow. I really appreciate all of you guys spending time with me this evening. I'll be back on Friday with another night of stories, and then again on Sunday when we start James and the Giant Peach. No sad stories right now. But if you enjoy these stories and would like to support what I do here, please consider subscribing or becoming a superfan. It helps keep the campfire lit. But as I say, subscribed or not, superfan or not, I am just happy that you are here. It wouldn't be the same without you. So, yeah, I will see you guys all on Friday. Until then, please be kind to yourself. Be kind to others, because kindness matters. And so do you. Good night, everybody.